Oh, no. Yes!
What is up? GoodMicWork back at you. A little bit late again on a commentary this week. Haven't been up in about a week and a half. I apologize for the delay. The last time I was up here was right after Night of Champions when I did my reaction video. I did not review the post-Night of Champions Monday Night Raw because, quite frankly, the show was a little bit boring. And after this past week's Monday Night Raw not being much better, I figured I would just do a double review of both shows, briefly touch on last week, and then we'll get into what we saw on Raw this week. A little preview for the big Madison Square Garden show this Saturday night on the WWE Network, the card for Hell in the Cell, some WrestleMania 32 rumors and plans, and a few other news tidbits as well. We'll get into all of that here in episode 292. If you're a first-time listener, welcome aboard. You are going to fucking love it here, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button and give the like button a click. You can check me out and download all of my commentaries on GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. You can also find me on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Now, as far as the business at hand this week goes, let's briefly just touch on last Monday night's Raw, the night after Night of Champions. There were a few things on that show that I do consider significant, and we'll get into that briefly, and then we will talk about this past Monday night's Raw. But the big story last week after the pay-per-view, of course, we saw the return of Kane at Night of Champions. Came out and attacked Seth Rollins, prevented Sheamus from cashing in the Money in the Bank, and the show went off the air with Demon Kane coming back to the WWE. We fast forward the next night on Raw. Seth Rollins goes into the Authority's locker room to address Triple H and Stephanie and ask them what the hell's going on with Kane, and he finds corporate Kane standing there, reassuming the role he had before he got injured. And pretending like he has no idea what the hell Seth is talking about Demon Kane attacking him the night before. So I was immediately kind of, I think we all felt the same way when Kane returned at Night of Champions. It was like, I respect the shit out of Glenn Jacobs. I mean, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt in my mind. But it's just amazing in today's day and age. We're almost in 2016, and a guy like Kane is still such a focal point of the show. Now, to Kane's credit, he's actually doing really well with the character. I know a lot of people don't like corporate Kane. There were times when I couldn't fucking stand the guy. But in this particular storyline that they're doing, it's a little bit funny. The look on Kane's face when Seth came in there, he's like, just full of shit. He's just a big shit-eating grin on his face, being all corporate and political and intelligent sounding when he's talking to Seth. And yeah, I've reassumed my role as director of operations. Didn't you get the email? I mean, actually pretty funny shit. Kane is actually not that bad at portraying the character that he currently has. It's just not really any of our favorites. But at least this time, when Kane comes back, it doesn't feel like that same old shit. He's Demon Kane again. Now they're doing it where he's like both. He's got like a split personality. So at least this adds a little bit more to it. Still not the most exciting feud, but fuck it. Kane is going to be feuding with Seth Rollins now. At least it's not John Cena. At least Seth Rollins' title reign will most likely continue a little bit longer. I can't see Kane winning the WWE title in this program. You would think these guys are most likely going to have a match at Hell in the Cell for the title. The only way I could possibly see Kane getting the WWE title is if this is his retirement run or something like that. Otherwise, Seth, after winning the belt at WrestleMania 31, I don't think Kane would be the guy he would drop it to. But we'll get into a little bit more on that when we talk about what we saw this past Monday night. So basically, in a nutshell, the angle that they're going with after Kane's return is that he will have the two characters. He will be corporate Kane and he will be Demon Kane. And I made the joke on Twitter Monday night, which got a lot of laughs. I said, what if Demon Kane is how he really looks and corporate Kane is just a mask? Blew a lot of people's minds. If WWE wants to get really freaky, they could figure out a way to do that. Another big piece of news from the post-Night of Champions Monday Night Raw was the Paige pipe bomb during Charlotte's celebration after she won the Divas title at Night of Champions. Now, this started off horribly. I was just disgusted with this whole thing. Like, look, I know we're all happy for Charlotte. She finally won the Divas title. My last couple of commentaries were very controversial because a lot of it was centered around Nikki Bella, and I got a shit ton of views on both of those things, which just goes to show you, people like Nikki Bella and John Cena, they draw ratings everywhere, even on fucking YouTube. But anyway, I'm not here to debate any of that Charlotte and Nikki Bella storyline crap. That shit's over with now. Charlotte's the champ. We need to move on. So they come out there to do this big celebration for Charlotte, which was just a little bit stupid because I've mentioned how meaningless I think the Divas title is, and I did not like all the fans' reaction when they were freaking out over Nikki Bella escaping one more time and breaking AJ Lee's record. I'm like, who cares? This belt's, just several years old. Who gives a fuck? So Charlotte coming out there and being so emotional, I said to myself, Charlotte, you're not retiring. You just won the Divas title. This is something you could lose in 1 week. By the time her career is over, she will probably be a 55-time Divas champion. So this one victory, yes, it's special. Yes, I'm happy for her. Yes, I'm glad Ric Flair was there to share that moment with her. But enough is enough with the crying and the emotion. Give me a fucking break. And finally, Paige grabbed the mic and said exactly what I was thinking. Enough is enough. And here comes the Paige heel turn, or so we thought. Now, what was interesting about this is I commented in my previous videos as it related to the Charlotte and Nikki Bella feud. I said that I wanted Charlotte to be the one to cut the shoot promo after what Nikki Bella did to her on that Monday Night Raw, switching places with Brie Bella and allowing herself to keep the Divas title and break AJ Lee's record and stealing that moment away from Charlotte with her father there and all of that stuff. I thought that would have been the perfect time for a diva pipe bomb. I said Charlotte should have looked right in the camera. She should be beat red in the face, veins popping out of her forehead, and call Nikki out. And call her sister out, too, for the people that they're fucking. And their whole family is fucking, for that matter, when you count their mother. And if she would have done some little sort of half shoot on Nikki, stormed out to the ring pissed off, and squashed that bitch in a matter of seconds, to me, that's where the storyline, that's how it should have culminated. I still think it was okay the way they did it because Charlotte still won the title, and who cares at the end of the day, right? So she's out there, crying and being so emotional about winning the title, and then Paige is the one that cuts the promo that I wanted Charlotte to cut the night before. And I think we can all agree Paige is a great bad guy. I think I prefer her as one. For a young little thing like that, she's pretty damn good and believable on the mic, and she seemed legitimately pissed off, and I love that she just kind of did it as a half shoot. I wanted somebody to get on the mic and call out Nikki and Brie, and Paige pretty much did that, as well as calling out people like Natty Neidhart for not even being involved in this Divas Revolution, a diva that was long time considered the best in-ring worker on the roster, probably still is as far as the females go, and she's not even involved in this shit. What the hell's going on? So this promo really opened up the door for Paige to go back to being a heel again. Now she's got a whole bunch of different girls she can feud with, namely Charlotte. It also is a great gateway to bring Natty Neidhart back into the mix, and we saw that on this past Monday Night's Raw. So the whole Paige promo I was happy with because I think somebody needed to end this ridiculous, sappy fucking celebration by Charlotte and Becky and Ric Flair. And Paige doing what she did was great, and I was excited about it. But I got a little bit confused during this past Monday Night's Raw, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The final piece of business that I'm going to talk about as far as the post-Night of Champions Monday Night Raw was the Big Show versus Cesaro. This match, of course, was highly controversial because Cesaro is one of those internet darlings that cannot be touched and can never lose or the fans shit their pants. Now, in this case, I actually do agree with them in most respects regarding this because the WWE, it's like every time we start to get excited about Cesaro, they blue ball us. What the fuck is going on here? So I was hoping that after Tyson Kidd's injury and they were going to start using Cesaro as a singles again, I was hoping he could at least do something significant. And I think he was getting to that point, but now they have this big match at Madison Square Garden with Brock Lesnar and the Big Show, so the Big Show's got to win a bunch of matches until then, right? So the person that they chose on the first week was Cesaro. Now the fans are all pissed off about that because, it's burying Cesaro. I don't believe that it's burying Cesaro because the Big Show is a 7-foot giant who's been in the WWE for many years. He's pretty much a legend. There's no shame in losing to the Big Show, but he was pretty much squashed. And the reason the WWE did that because Big Show's got a big match with Brock Lesnar, and he's got to look strong, right? Even though we know Big Show has no chance in hell of winning this, you still can't have Big Show coming out being involved in the stupid angles that he's been involved in recently. He's got to squash a couple of people. WWE chose Cesaro as one of those people, and there's really nothing I can do about that. It had to be somebody significant. So I guess in some ways you can say, well, at least WWE considers Cesaro significant enough to put in there with the Big Show for him to run over. It's not like he's Bo Dallas. He's not Zack Ryder. Big Show couldn't go out there and beat one of those guys because they're not credible. Big Show is about to get in the ring with Brock Lesnar in a week. He's got to face some stiff competition, and Cesaro is stiff competition. Now, where my big problem with this comes is that why do we have to see the Big Show versus Brock Lesnar again? How good can this match possibly be? If you ask me, the guy that Big Show knocked out, Cesaro, that should be Brock Lesnar's opponent. Let Brock Lesnar squash Cesaro. Who cares? Have Cesaro go in there, give him a good competitive 10-minute match. Not to the level of almost beating him, but still a lot more offense than Kofi Kingston gave him during the Japan show. I think if you give Cesaro something in between where he puts up a valiant effort, Maybe gets Brock down once or twice, gets him stunned, even has Paul Heyman dropping his jaw a little bit, like, what the fuck is going on here? And then finally Brock grabs him, F5s him, and pins him, and just give Cesaro a little bit of respect. There's nobody saying he has to beat Brock. Have Brock annihilate him in 10 minutes, but give him a little bit of offense to where he at least earns the respect of somebody like Paul Heyman or Brock Lesnar. To me, if you want to build Cesaro and you want this guy to be a main player on your roster, that's the match you should put him in. But instead, they put him in the ring with the Big Show, and the Big Show knocks him out with a big fist in 4 minutes, maybe less? So on one hand, I can completely see the fans' argument. Yeah, it's frustrating when the WWE does stuff like this, but then again, they had to have him beat somebody. Nobody was bitching that he did the same thing to Mark Henry the last Monday night on Raw. Nobody's saying Mark Henry was buried. Only Cesaro was buried because Cesaro is a favorite. The WWE was going to line a couple of people up for the Big Show to run over on his path to Brock Lesnar. That's the way they do things. People didn't like the choice of Cesaro. They feel it's going to hurt him in the long run. They might be right. Only time will tell. Moving on to this past Monday night's Raw now, the September 28th, 2015 edition. Not a great show either. The show was primarily surrounded around Seth Rollins and Kane. Now, the ratings have been in the shitter, apparently. They were down for the go-home Night of Champions show, I believe. They were down even more for the post-Night of Champions Raw. So the WWE needs to do something to try to boost the ratings, right? So what do they decide to do? Have a good old-fashioned HR performance evaluation for corporate Kane. That's the big multi-segment storyline that structured all of Monday Night Raw. Now, a lot of people question that decision. It wasn't the greatest thing. You think the WWE would come up with a few more things to try to get fans back interested again? It looks like they're tossing all of their eggs in one basket in a couple of weeks, the October 19th Monday Night Raw, which I believe will have Stone Cold Steve Austin and Brock Lesnar and Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, a whole bunch of legends. I think that's the same night that Brock is going to be on Stone Cold's podcast. So they're loading up that Monday Night Raw, but the in-between stuff, in between now and then, has not been very good. Now, I will say this. For the corporate Kane, Seth Rollins storyline, it had its entertaining moments to it. A lot of fans were shitting on it because, they just weren't feeling the show, I guess. The crowd was a little bit off or dead. People didn't seem really into it. But I got to say, I'm actually a fan of Kane's work. I think he's doing a great job with this character. I think he's funny as shit. It was so funny to watch him kiss the ass of that HR lady. He did the backstage segment where he brought a present to Seth Rollins and he opens it up and it's the severed head from his statue. I don't know where the hell Kane found that. He said he dug in the garbage for hours for it or something like that, and with this just big grin on his face, and it's just so incredibly funny. It's also very incredibly stupid because this whole thing started by Triple H and Stephanie bringing in this little chick from HR, calling her Ashley, and saying she's going to evaluate Kane's performance, follow him all around Monday Night Raw, watch how he does his job, and then file a report at the end of the show. All of this is going to be done, by the way, on camera and in the ring. I know you have to suspend your disbelief a lot in storylines, but WWE is really asking a lot in this storyline. First of all, this whole human resources shit is ridiculous because this would never go on in front of the camera on live TV. And on top of that, we're dealing with another storyline that involves superpowers. So there's all sorts of crazy shit going on. Seth Rollins is obviously freaked out. He doesn't believe Kane for a second. He's doing everything he can to convince Ashley that Kane is a demon piece of shit and he needs to be fired. All the while, Kane is doing a great job. She likes what she sees. Kane's kissing her ass. I was almost thinking they were going to try to do an affair with one of them. I was waiting for the camera to show the two of them in the corner, like making out or having Ashley like on top of Kane or something like that, or doing something sexual, or maybe Seth Rollins seducing her to try to get her to do his bidding for him. I kind of thought they were going to do something with her in that way, but basically, if you fast forward through all the bullshit backstage segments that we see between the two, Kane gets in the ring with Ashley and she starts to file her report and says that Kane is of sound mind and body and thinks that he should remain in the position of director of operations. Seth Rollins comes out and says, hold the phone, hold the phone. He shows a big video package about how crazy Kane can be and all the shit that he's done over the years. He ends up getting in the ring, gets right in Kane's face, screaming and yelling, but then he grabs the chair and starts beating the shit out of Kane. I think he kicks him first or low blows him or something, gives him the pedigree, and just starts beating the shit out of corporate Kane's leg. Chair shot after chair shot, fucking him up good. The doctors and the paramedics come out, the ambulance comes out, they actually put Kane on a stretcher, wheel him all the way to the back. He gets in the ambulance. Seth Rollins is still in the ring, watching all of the shit on the Titantron. The ambulance starts to leave, it stops, the windows turn red, and all of a sudden,
by the power of Grayskull,
This motherfucker, in a blink of an eye, transforms into Demon Kane, busts through the ambulance doors, smoke is coming out, big red light. He's still limping, kind of coming down the hallway, and then he just stomps his leg on the ground. He's completely healed, and he starts walking with a purpose straight to the ring. Seth, for some reason, does not run away. Kane gets in there, beats the shit out of Seth Rollins, and grabs the WWE title. So that is probably going to be your Hell in the Cell match, which is fine, because as the WWE champion going into a show that's going to be main evented by The Undertaker and Brock Lesnar, you're not going to have a huge high-profile WWE title match. So they're just giving Seth this opponent because it's not going to be the main event, and it's probably going to be someone that Seth Rollins defeats. And they can save a bigger, more important match for Seth Rollins when the WWE title is back in the main event. So really, at the end of the day, I don't have a huge problem with Kane feuding for the WWE title, because I almost think, like I said earlier, unless he's gearing up for a retirement run, I don't see him winning the title. I just think Kane is an opponent for Seth Rollins that the WWE is going to use to kill time. So I'm sure in the upcoming weeks or days, because I have not yet read the SmackDown spoilers, we should get an announcement on this match at any time, I would think. I doubt it will be in the Hell in the Cell. I think they should only do one this time around. I think, didn't last year they do two? With Brock and Taker, especially if they're going to be main eventing, they got to be the only one. Because I don't want anybody to go on before them and steal their thunder. Plus, they're working in the Hell in the Cell in today's environment where there's not going to be any blood. Although Brock still does bleed sometimes, so maybe we'll get a little. It would be nice if we did, but I'm not expecting it. And I think with a match of this magnitude, with two icons like that, Brock and Taker, that needs to be the only Hell in the Cell match. So Seth and Kane need to be involved in something else. Their feud and storyline, though, has been going on for a long time. You got to think that they might actually do the Hell in the Cell between the two, and Kane and Taker will both be involved in cell matches. Who knows what they're going to do, but I'm sure we will find out by this Monday night's Raw. The show actually opened up with John Cena coming out and cutting a promo and issuing a United States Open Challenge. I'm so glad this is back. So, by the way, as you can tell, I'm going to be skipping all over this Raw. So Cena issues the challenge, and then in hilarious fashion, all you hear as he's waiting for his opponent is his theme music being played through a trombone. How fucking awesome is Xavier Woods? I'm telling you, I've never been more entertained by the New Day than I have been in the past few weeks, especially this motherfucker and his horn. What I like about Xavier Woods is, if you look at this situation, is real life. If I was the opponent of the New Day, I would want to murder this motherfucker. He is so annoying and obnoxious and awful outside the ring. And he's such a baby about everything, and that's what makes him so damn entertaining. I laughed so hard when I think Cena just clotheslined him to start the match, and he rolled out to the ring, and he's screaming, I wasn't ready. I mean, how can you not love a guy and have sympathy for a guy like that? Yeah, fuck you, Cena. He wasn't ready. What are you doing cheating like that? He's so good at that character that he actually has you believing his bullshit, and that's what I like the most about him. And he's funny as hell. And in a big surprise, what we all thought would be an easy win and a basic squash by John Cena on Xavier Woods, he doesn't beat him clean. He's about to pin him. New Day jumps in the ring. Cena gets the victory by disqualification, and then the Dudley Boyz run out there to make the save. This all happened pretty early on into the match, so you knew they were just setting up for the big six-man tag to open up Raw, which is not bad. The Dudley Boyz and John Cena, how many times over the years have they crossed paths? Not many, because, Cena was just getting on the map when the Dudley Boyz left. You guys can fill me in if they've ever teamed before. I don't think they have, but it's Cena and the Dudleys taking on the New Day, and guess what? New Day won, which I think is great. If they're gonna take the titles off the New Day, they had to win this one here. Give them a big victory. I mentioned before that the Dudleys, I feel, should chase around the New Day for a while, and I was glad that they did not beat them at Night of Champions. And I said to myself, WWE should save the moment of giving the Dudley Boyz back the WWE title when they're in an arena or an environment that's really going to pop hard for it, like the New York or Philly area. And just guess where they happen to be in a couple of days. Madison Square Garden. The Dudley Boyz are getting a title shot in MSG on the WWE Network. That's going to be the night. Unless the WWE feels that New Day is too over right now to take the belts off of them, I fully expect the Dudley Boyz to win the tag team titles on that show. For them to come back to the WWE after all these years and go back into Madison Square Garden and win the tag team titles, I mean, you talk about just adding another cherry on top of the Dudley Boyz legacy. That's going to be a moment, and it's really hard for me to see the WWE not doing that. I would like nothing more for New Day to keep the belts longer, but given the show is at MSG, I think you got to give it to the Dudleys here. But either way, I just just have to give major props to New Day. They have really stuck with this gimmick, and they did not give up, and the WWE did not give up on it. And what went from a three-man team getting virtually zero reaction from the crowd was picking their asses and sniffing their fingers, going to get hot dogs, taking a piss, taking a shit, doing anything else but watching the New Day have their match. And now they're pretty much one of the most over gimmicks in the company, at least to me anyway. I just find them highly entertaining. So they've rapidly become one of my favorite things to watch on Monday Night Raw. And that's a tribute to what great performers Kofi and Big E and Xavier Woods, all three of those guys are. Great job, boys. You guys are cracking me up. Speaking of the big Madison Square Garden show, I also believe it's going to be John Cena and Seth Rollins in a cage. Did I read that correctly? I think that's going to be for the United States title, so obviously Cena will retain there. The other match, as we all know, is Big Show versus Brock Lesnar. Now, like I talked about earlier, Big Show the week before annihilated Cesaro on his path to Brock Lesnar. Now he's got to annihilate someone else. And Vince McMahon loves these big, beefy matches, doesn't he? So this week on Monday Night Raw, it's going to be Big Show versus Mark Henry. I think it's safe to say that neither guy is going to be hitting the other one with the red arrow. Anyway, as expected, just like last week with Cesaro, why is Big Show going to lose to either one of these guys just a couple of weeks before he has to face Brock? So Big Show knocks out Mark Henry, makes quick work of him, goes back to the back. Paul Heyman is going to be coming out later on to cut a promo, basically hyping the big match at Madison Square Garden. He comes out to do that a little while later, and Paul Heyman's promos and everything are always fantastic. The guy knows what he's doing. He knows how to sell a match, even if the match sucks, and he knows it does, but he still did a pretty good job of trying to sell the audience the idea of this Brock Lesnar and Big Show match. He comes out there and cut his promo, talked a little bit about Undertaker and Hell in the Cell as well, I think. Big Show ends up coming out, getting in Paul Heyman's face and saying, in a couple of days, your client is going to have to get in the ring with me and he's going to have to face the Giant and whatever the fuck he said. And Paul Heyman kind of just walks away. He almost kind of gets spooked or scared, and he walks away kind of looking back at the Big Show. And what interests me is that WWE, it seems like with this match, they're trying to build up the fact that Big Show and Brock Lesnar do have a very, very long and storied rivalry, but they're not mentioning when Paul Heyman turned on Brock Lesnar, which ironically did happen also at Madison Square Garden at Survivor Series 2002, did it not? And the whole time I'm listening to the Big Show promo, I'm saying to myself, why is he not mentioning this? Now, maybe they mentioned it somewhere else during the show, because I was also watching the Monday Night Football game with the Green Bay Packers and Kansas City Chiefs, so I was almost watching both. And when Raw was getting really boring, I will admit that I wasn't paying 100% attention to it, so maybe I missed it somewhere else. But if they want to build a legacy between these two guys, why are they not mentioning the time that Big Show beat Brock Lesnar for the WWE title and Paul Heyman dumped Brock for the Big Show? But anyway, Paul Heyman, does what Paul Heyman does, and he knows how to sell a match, even if we know the match is horseshit. We know Brock Lesnar is going to win. I would so much prefer, I think that's somewhere where we're all on the same page. I would so much prefer for Brock Lesnar to go out there at Madison Square Garden and have a competitive match. Don't forget, this is the New York City crowd we're talking about. They're all going to love Brock. They're all going to pop for him. But to see this match, don't you want to give those fans, especially those particular fans, something fun and entertaining? And I think Cesaro would have been a much better opponent for Brock. They could do a lot of fun spots in that match because Cesaro was so athletic. And I know he would do a fantastic job selling for Brock Lesnar, especially, if Brock is able to counter one of Cesaro's crazy moves into an F5 or something like that. I think it would be really exciting and a fun match to watch, and I think the crowd would be into it. But instead, we're getting the fucking Big Show versus Brock Lesnar. I just think the WWE should be a little bit more careful on their handling of Big Show in front of crowds like this. Now, I know a lot of people give the Big Show shit. It's amazing that we see Kane and the Big Show so heavily featured on today's product. That's amazing considering how long they've been around. A lot of fans are disgusted by that. It reeks of Vince McMahon because these are two big giants that Vince McMahon still thinks is the big thing in wrestling. Everybody wants to see big guys wrestle. No, it's not very exciting. And they need to be careful because the fans, even the New York City fans, I don't know if they would be asshole-ish enough to shit on a Brock match, but they might. They've done it before when he worked with Goldberg in that same building, so they have to be careful. And the only thing I think good about this match is that if you think about it, October is going to finally cap off two of Brock Lesnar's long-time feuds that's been going on for over 10 years. He's going to wrap up business with the Big Show, and he's going to wrap up business with the Undertaker at Hell in the Cell. Either way, after this month, hopefully he will never be in the ring with either one of those two guys again. In another very disappointing segment on Monday Night Raw, we saw the return of King Barrett. Wade Barrett made his return to WWE during a match between Stardust and Neville. And I hated this on so many levels. Number one, I hated that he didn't come back as Bad News Barrett, because this King Barrett is so lame. I have taken a shit on that crown and cape for so long, and at least this time he didn't come out wearing that stupid shit. But the whole King of the Ring tournament seemed pointless, because all it did was crown a guy that became a jobber a week later. It didn't do anything to elevate anybody, and it was just another show that they just smeared on the WWE Network for no reason. I think they need to take the King of the Ring either seriously or never do it again. So I was hoping after Wade Barrett left, what did he go do? Did he go to film a movie or something like that? He's been gone for, maybe a month since SummerSlam-ish. So whatever he was off doing, I was hoping that when he came back, they would re-debut him and try to push him again, because he's been off TV for a while. The fans have always liked Wade Barrett. They pretty much support the guy, and they want WWE to do more with him. So I thought when he came back, he should be Bad News Barrett, or go back to being something a little bit more than the joke that he previously was, feuding with R-Truth and shit like that. But no, he comes right back out, same old King Barrett gimmick, attacks Stardust, attacks Neville, and then gets on the mic, and I start getting excited. I'm like, great, grab that mic, Wade Barrett, and you cut a scathing promo. You've been shit on for the last few months, treated like crap by the WWE. Make a statement, say, I'm back, and I'm not going to take any shit. Nope, he doesn't do that. They just instruct him to say, all hail, King Barrett has returned, and then he throws down the mic and he leaves. I mean, it was like one sentence. Wade Barrett can cut a promo. We've heard him do it before. So why did the WWE choose to bring him back in this way? I'll tell you why, because they have no intention of pushing the guy at all. He is going to pick up right where he left off before he left, and he's going to be a jobber by next week. WWE, I don't think, had any intention of repackaging him or doing anything different with him when he came back. They're just going to bring him right back into the roster on the same level that he was before. And I find that extremely disappointing. We had more Diva drama as well on Monday Night Raw. Now, this got a little bit confusing. Now, Charlotte and Becky were going to be guests on Miz TV, which is fine if that's the platform they want to use to further the storyline with Paige's pipe bomb that she cut last week. So Charlotte and Becky are basically in there. They're giving shit to The Miz, of course, and Charlotte calls out Paige. She goes, I want you to come to the ring, and we're either going to talk this out and hash it out like adults, or we're going to fight. Now, after some of the things that Paige said last week on Monday Night Raw, to me, there was never any question of whether or not these girls broke up. Yes, of course they did. So Paige does come out, and as soon as she starts getting rolling, Team Bella makes an appearance. Alicia, Nikki, and Brie come out to the ring, and then the six of them start cutting promos on each other. Way too many people, way too many voices, way too much going on. Leads to a six-man tag, or six-woman tag, between Team Bella and PCB. What the fuck is going on here? I understand that sometimes you'll have unlikely tag teams joining forces to fight off a common enemy, but not a week after the fucking heel turn. If you ask me, this angle that they did on Monday Night Raw with the Six Diva match with Paige walking off, that should have been done last week after Night of Champions, and then Paige should have cut the pipe bomb this week. It seems weird, like it was reversed. She turns heel and leaves the group the week before, and then rejoins the team the next week to face off the common enemy in the Bellas, and then she kind of walks off and just walks away from the match. Natty comes out and takes her place. They still wind up losing to Team Bella. So I guess that was the official turn of Paige. She is not going to be associated with PCB anymore. She's going to go off on her own and be heel. But they didn't even need to do that. After that promo she cut the week before, they didn't need to do this silly little angle in the tag match. It was pretty clear that Paige was moving on. Aside from that, on Monday Night Raw, of course, we had the main event that I'll talk about in a minute, but Randy Orton squashed Bo Dallas in a random match. Bo Dallas came out and cut one of his hilarious promos. I guess they had the Buffalo Bills right there in the front row, some of the team members there watching Raw, and Bo Dallas, of course, like they always do. Some heel, usually a guy like Bo Dallas, will come out and trash the hometown team, and it's even funnier when the hometown team is in the front row. Randy Orton comes out there and beats the shit out of Bo Dallas, much to the delight of the Buffalo Bills, and that was all in all a pretty stupid match. The Wyatt family, or two of them anyway, Stroman and Harper, beat the primetime players, and Stroman looking strong again. This time he puts Titus O'Neil, who is no midget, in that crazy-ass submission hold of his. Titus passes out, excuse me, and it looks like these guys are going to be a bona fide tag team, and you have to wonder when the belts will be around their waists. You would think it has to be. That's a pretty scary team. I mean, Harper is big as it is, and then Stroman is even bigger than him, and he's pretty impressive. We all like him so far. And if you ask me, keep him in the tag teams because this guy is pretty green. We never even really saw a lot of him on NXT. Most people didn't even know he existed, so you think he's got to get some matches under his belt in tag team situations, so I think Harper and Stroman will be teaming for the significant future, and they will eventually, of course, break him up and do something with Stroman on his own one day, but I think right now, putting him in the team with Luke Harper can be a good thing. They can help get him over as the crazy-ass, awesome, kick-ass monster that he is, and it's probably only a matter of time before Stroman winds up having Bubba Ray Dudley in that exact move and winning the tag team titles for him and Harper. Now, the main event for Monday Night Raw was something that none of us could really bitch about: Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt, one-on-one. What's wrong with that main event? It's not same old shit. It's not John Cena. It's newer guys. It's younger guys. But, of course, not the young guy the fans want because nobody fucking likes Roman Reigns. But if you ask me, this main event, WWE giving it to two guys that have been on the main roster for, what, 3 years? I think that says something for both guys as far as their placement on the roster goes. But this match, I think, ended in a double DQ, or a double countout, one or the other, and had a pretty good brawl to end the show. I'm guessing that this is another candidate for a Hell in the Cell match if they did, in fact, do 2 of these matches at the pay-per-view. I would hate to think that they would do 3, because if you think about it, with Brock and Taker already being in there, Kane and Seth Rollins, you could technically put them in a cell as far as the history between the two of them goes and the storyline they've had over the past few months. A cell could be necessary in that sort of an angle, and the same goes for Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns. I mean, this whole thing started by Bray Wyatt costing Roman Reigns a chance to get the Money in the Bank briefcase, and it's gotten pretty heated. So you think this thing could also wind up in a fucking cell. I think it would be more suited for maybe like a last man standing match or some shit like that, but I'm not sure if the WWE would have another gimmick match on a gimmick match pay-per-view. I don't know if you can have a last man standing match on a Hell in the Cell pay-per-view, so I don't know what they're going to do for Hell in the Cell. Clearly, these guys are going to work together again. They could just go simple and make it a no-holds-barred match with all members of the Wyatt family and Dean Ambrose banned from ringside. They could do something simple like that. Or they could also put it in the cell, and like I said, I haven't read the SmackDown spoilers, so I don't know what's going to happen on Thursday night. Something might already be announced for that, I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out more about that in the next upcoming Monday Night Raw. So definitely not the greatest Raw. Overall, pretty boring show, although it had its moments. A few of the Kane segments with Seth Rollins did have me chuckling a little bit, because I do think Kane, playing the corporate Kane character, is really good and really funny. I also thought the main event was good, even though we didn't get a winner, because it had a great ending. The spear through the table was fantastic. Great bump by both of those guys. Some pretty good brawling, and the ending of the show wasn't bad. And plus, it was centered around, 2 relatively new guys on the WWE roster, and if you ask me, there is nothing at all wrong with that. Just a couple of other things before I get out of here. I want to touch on some news items. First of all, I want to talk about Sting. Now, Sting had the match, of course, with Seth Rollins at Night of Champions, and I don't think I talked about this during my reaction video because I wasn't aware of it, but Sting was seriously injured in that match, and there was a lot of talk immediately following the match and the next night that Sting's career could, in fact, be over. Apparently, he was in a shit ton of pain after the match, and this is all neck and spinal cord related. They took him to the hospital, they got all sorts of tests done on him, MRIs and CT scans and all that shit, and determined that he's got, I forget the name of it, spinal stenosis or some shit like that. Whatever Edge and Stone Cold has, he's kind of got the same thing. And I think it could have been made worse by the 2 turnbuckle power bombs that he took from Seth Rollins in that Night of Champions match. Don't forget, Sting is 56 years old. So I'm really nervous that actually could be the end for Sting. WWE might be too nervous to clear him. He's already up there in age, and this is a very serious condition that he has. He's probably always had it. I think he's just been diagnosed with it now. I don't think anything Seth Rollins did to him in that match caused it. I just think it probably made it worse. And it's going to make it a really difficult thing for Sting to ever get in the ring and wrestle again. And you have to wonder if the WWE wanted to do anything with him at WrestleMania 32 or whatever. We're not going to know that for a while. And Sting, with him having this injury, I think he should retire. If he's able to wrestle, if he's able to get cleared, I say he has one more match and he hangs it up and doesn't risk any more. It would seem strange to me if Seth Rollins turned out to be the guy that Sting worked with last in his career, after Sting's entire career never even interacting with Seth Rollins or knowing who he was. Seth Rollins was just a baby when Sting was on top of the world. He comes into the WWE for less than a year, works with him, gets hurt, and has to retire. I wouldn't pin Seth Rollins as being Sting's final opponent. But, he is the face of the new generation. He is the current WWE World Heavyweight Champion, probably the best in-ring performer WWE has on the roster, which when you think about Seth Rollins in that respect, hey, the WWE put the WWE title on the guy that they feel can give the best match night in and night out. How many times has the WWE made decisions like that? Certainly not when John Cena was champion, right? So Seth Rollins, while not a perfect character and not a perfect WWE champion, I think he is a great choice for WWE champion, and I love the long run that he's had, because for years fans have been bitching. All you do is push John Cena. All you do is give the belt to him, or give the belt to Batista, or you want to push Roman Reigns, or something like that. Here they're actually giving the fans what they want, much like they did in 2004 with Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero, and the fans really still don't seem happy. I also read Sting's interview that he did on WWE.com, which I'm assuming is a shoot, but he talked a little bit about his injury and some of the things he went through the night of Champions when he got hurt, and talked about Seth Rollins and how much respect he has for the guy. Put him over huge. Even going as so far as to saying he's the best wrestler he's ever been in the ring with. That might be a stretch, but still, that's a hell of a compliment from a guy like Sting. I really wish him all the best. I really hope we can at least get Sting in the ring one more time for a farewell, whether it be The Undertaker or whether it just be somebody significant where he can just kind of ride off into the sunset like he definitely deserves to do. Hall of Fame, DVD, the whole deal. So given the fact that Sting has suffered this injury, you got to think if Sting is going to retire, it's got to be soon. I also briefly wanted to touch on Brock Lesnar being the guest on Stone Cold's podcast on Monday Night Raw. I think that's going to be the October 19th edition, where they have loaded up a bunch of legends. I know Flair's going to be there, like I said, HBK, Brock Lesnar, and Undertaker I'm sure will be there, because I think that's the go-home Raw to Hell in the Cell. Of course, you're going to have Stone Cold Steve Austin being in the ring on Monday Night Raw, which I can't even remember the last time that happened. And hell, they might even add one or two other legends as well to show up on this Raw. So they're really pulling out all the stops for this one. They want to have a good show. They want to really build up Hell in the Cell in LA between Brock and Taker in a big way, and I hope they can pull it off. As far as what Brock and Stone Cold are going to talk about, I don't know how much they're going to get into the WrestleMania 32 match, because I know they used that as a big selling point on the last podcast that Austin did with Paul Heyman, and they got to the end and they started talking about that potential match, and even kind of had a little heat between the two of them, and they had to end the podcast on a little bit of a harsh terms, and the fans started immediately getting huge boner, like, holy shit, is it going to be Brock Lesnar versus Stone Cold? And Austin has come out time and time again and saying, no, that is not going to happen. I'm not going to get back in the ring. You can forget that altogether. The only thing I can think is that Austin has been so adamant about this in recent weeks, or since that podcast with Heyman happened. Every time Austin's been asked, he has said 100% no, that match is not happening. Get it out of your head. So it's possible that maybe Austin is working us, and he wants everybody to think that there is no chance in hell that match will happen, and then they do an angle on the podcast. And that's another thing. Do you want to start crossing this shit over into angles because you're on the podcast talking about how wrestling is staged and predetermined and how they work out everything in advance, and then can you really have a storyline break on that same podcast and the same podcast where you're pulling back the curtain? It's two very strange worlds colliding there. So if they were to go with a Brock Lesnar-Austin match, what if they did do something on the podcast? What if Heyman was there sitting with Brock Lesnar and instigating shit? And then finally Austin gets pissed and stands up and tries to get his hands on Paul Heyman, and then Brock Lesnar decks him or knocks him out right there, knocks him right over the desk, and Austin is unconscious or something like that. I don't know. They could actually do some sort of an angle on the podcast if they wanted to build some sort of a match at WrestleMania 32. So maybe Austin is just being adamant about the match not happening to throw the fans off, but then again, there's a really good chance Austin is telling the truth. I don't know if Austin at his age can get in there and have a match. He can probably get in there and have a match, but the match he's going to have with Brock Lesnar, a hard-hitting, brutal affair, that might be tough for Austin to pull off. I don't know how big that match would be. I actually think The Rock and Brock Lesnar might be a bigger match, only because The Rock is so huge in mainstream. He's such a huge, big Hollywood star. Him and Brock Lesnar are both household names. I think a lot of people know who Brock Lesnar is. Between WWE and UFC, even if you don't follow either one of them, you've probably heard the name Brock Lesnar. You've probably seen him on ESPN or SportsCenter or somewhere else. He's one of those guys, much like Ronda Rousey, that kind of crosses over and people take notice of them even if they're not a fan of what they do. So with Brock Lesnar's reputation as such a badass ass-kicking monster and The Rock being so over and huge in Hollywood in the mainstream, I think that match could draw huge numbers for the WWE, but I almost can't see that one happening either. It looks like if they're going to do anything with The Rock, it's going to involve Triple H and possibly even Stephanie and Ronda Rousey. So if Brock doesn't work with Stone Cold Steve Austin and he doesn't work with Undertaker, who's Brock going to work with? My early candidate is Roman Reigns, and I know a lot of fans hate that idea, but I loved their match at WrestleMania 31. I thought they did a great job, and the fact that these guys haven't seen each other or crossed paths since then, if they do something where, I don't know, Roman Reigns is the champion and then Brock Lesnar wins the Royal Rumble, I think that would be better than having Brock champion and Reigns win the Rumble, because the Rumble has been shit on and sabotaged and hijacked by the fans for the 2 previous years. They better do shit right this year, or even I might cancel my fucking WWE network. If there's one thing I'm sick of, is being disappointed at WWE Royal Rumble, so it's time that the WWE does this one right, and they should have Brock win it, or somebody like Brock. Somebody like Kevin Owens would be another good choice, because at least the fans would pop for that. At least they would be excited for that. If Randy Orton or John Cena or Roman Reigns or someone like that winds up winning the Royal Rumble, the fans are going to flip out. So there's a lot to speculate on as far as next year goes and WrestleMania, and there's definitely a lot to think about, and we have plenty of time to do that. I am so ready to get out of here now. I've got a lot to do, and I want to get this commentary uploaded. Also, a lot of people have asked me to comment on Kurt Angle's brother being arrested and for a murder of his wife. I think they had a domestic dispute, and he did something. He ended up hitting her, stabbing her. I don't remember what the details are now, but he's in jail, and he most likely did it. And I feel bad for Kurt Angle. That's got to be really hard for a family to deal with. I haven't read any of the details on it since the story broke, but I am aware of it, and it sucks. I mean, put yourself in Kurt Angle's position. I don't know, maybe some of you are already in that position. Do any of you have close family members that have committed heinous crimes and are in jail? I don't, but I can imagine that would be pretty hard if you did. And especially with somebody like Kurt Angle, who's visible and kind of a celebrity, in wrestling terms anyway, and has to go through this and has to field questions now from fans and deal with the scrutiny that his family's going to be under and all that, is a horrible situation. And it's just another example of how domestic violence and issues between people and couples can get so out of hand, and a lot of times fatalities can occur. And if Kurt Angle's brother is truly guilty of this, then I hope the motherfucker rots in hell. So that is it for this week. I will not be up live tweeting during the Madison Square Garden show on Saturday night. I will not be home, but I will catch it immediately after when I get home and watch the show, and then I will come up and talk about that and Monday Night Raw probably a week from now. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and weekend. Enjoy the MSG show on Saturday. Enjoy Monday Night Raw, and I will be back up here on Tuesday or Wednesday next week to talk about both shows. Until next time, peace.